Hey, what's up? This is Sensei. Today we're gonna make some cabbage. It's just sauteed vegetables with some fried dumpling. It's gonna be absolutely delicious. You don't have to do the dumpling if you're not doing any flour. You can just have the vegetables by itself. You can do some sweet potatoes, whatever floats your boat. But we are going to have some fun. Grab your veggies and let's get to work. First thing I'm doing, I'm taking the squash and I'm gonna just slice it down the middle. I'm gonna use the food processor to chop this stuff up nice and fine. Okay, I'm slicing it up, dicing it up. Let's get that internals of these peppers out. So this is a pepper that I'm using. You know, when you're cooking, you can use the whole pepper, by the way. You don't have to get rid of all of it. But I just like to get rid of the middle. Just, I guess that's what I've done since I've been a kid. I'm going to put this on a slice, push this through. All right, that's nicely done. Beautiful. Let's move on. There we go. Nice. I like it a lot. All right, so that is one squash, and this is one bell pepper. Now we're gonna cut up the cabbage and get it chopped up. So what I'm doing, I'm taking a half of a cabbage. I'm not gonna use the whole cabbage. You know, cabbage shrinks right down. When you put cabbage in a pot, it's just like spinach. It will just shrivel right up, okay? So we're gonna cut that down the middle. So what I'm doing with the cabbage, I'm not gonna make them chunky. I like it chopped up nice and fine, okay? Once you do that, and I'm using a half of a big cabbage. It's a large cabbage. All right, so I'm gonna turn on the stove and we're gonna put some oil. We're gonna let that heat up, okay? I'm using olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. You don't have to put a lot of oil. I just want enough because we're gonna put some onions and stuff like that. Let that saute and simmer a bit, and then we add the other stuff in it. So we're gonna chop up a bunch of scallion. Scallions just pops a lot of flavor. Little piece of onion that I had left from a prior recipe. All right, so I'm taking the onions and the scallions, putting that in the oil. I'm also gonna add one full tomato in here as well. I'm putting the heat on a medium height. I'm also gonna add some sticks of thyme in here. These are freshly picked thyme, but you can buy the thyme from the store. So in this case, I'm using Jamaican style seasoning, all right? So I'm gonna take to start off, I'm gonna take 3 tablespoons of this seasoning, which packs a bunch of flavor. I'm actually using 2 and probably a half, so you can see that, okay? Then I'm gonna take some turmeric, and the turmeric, I'm gonna put it to color, and we're gonna stir that. We're not gonna add any water whatsoever to this mixture. We'll take the mixture, all the stuff that we had cut up, the cabbage, and we're gonna put that in. Now look at how much cabbage you see, and all of that is gonna develop its own water. Take your time and stir it from the bottom and mix it all in together. All right, we're gonna put the cover on here, and I'm gonna let this cook for about a good 20 minutes, keeping the flame medium height, and let this just steam. What you can do also, you can leave the lid a little bit open just to allow the air to flow if you choose to do it that way, okay? Now, the next addition to this is some butter. Use as much butter as you want to. So it's a good amount of veggies. I'm using about this much butter, and we're gonna let that melt. Stir that in. The heat will take it where it needs to go. And you could add a little spice. Any flavor you make this cabbage into, it will take the flavor of what you want it to be. Now look, you see how it's already softening up, and it's already building up the water. So being that I'm going for the curry flavor, this curry is just a powdered curry. Some curry you have to literally cook out before anything. I'm taking I wouldn't say it's a full tablespoon, but almost a full tablespoon of curry. And I'm gonna mix that in. Now remember, curry has some spice to it, so you don't wanna overdo the curry, especially with the cabbage. Okay, it will kill the flavor. We just wanna get a little pop. All right, time to make the dumplings. So what I'm gonna do is I'm using all-purpose flour, And I'm gonna do 4 cups of all-purpose flour. That's 1 cup, 2 cups, here we go. That's 3 cups and 4 cups. Now we're gonna use the baking powder, and the baking powder is gonna help the flour to swell a bit so it doesn't stay flat. So I'm using 2 teaspoons of baking powder. I'm also gonna add 1 teaspoon of natural cane sugar. Now what we need to do is start to knead the flour, okay? And we wanna get everything to come together nice and firm, not too watery, not too soft. I'm gonna start off with 1 cup of water first. Make sure your hands are clean and washed so we can get to work and getting this part done, all right? So this is what I'm doing. I'm taking 1 cup of water and I'm gonna pour it in. I know that 1 cup is not gonna be too much for this amount. And we're gonna stir. This should take about maybe 2 1/4 cups, but your hands are gonna get a little messy. But we're not afraid of mess, and you're bringing all of the ingredients together. So let me do another cup of water. Now when you're doing the water, don't just pour the whole thing once you get past the cup. Pour it in piece by piece, and take your time. It's better to have too little bit of water rather than too much. So you can still see it's dried, okay? We want everything to be together. You don't want your hands to feel wet. You don't want the flour to feel wet. That's really the key component for me. I want it to feel firm. This feels like just the right amount. Might need to get just a little bit more water because the flour will begin to absorb the water. So I'm close to 2 cups of water already, just to give you the idea. It's still a little bit dry, so I'm put a little bit more water. And I'm pushing everything in, making sure it all comes together. Now I'm a little picky with my dumplings, right? There's a certain way I like to feel it. So if let's say it's a little bit too wet, you just take a little bit of flour and you sprinkle it over and work your way in. And that will help the water to dry up, absorb into the flour, and then you have a perfect mix. See, now I have a perfect mix. How do I know when I have a perfect mix? Because I can break this just like this, and you're gonna make a round shape. You're gonna round it. Use your thumbs to shape it a bit. So you're making a circle, and then you're gonna just press it, compress it down. You can make it as neat as you wanna make it. Make the shape that you wanna make it. If you have the kids, you can make triangles, whatever you want. In Jamaica, we like to put the little dimple in the middle, and that's how you're gonna make your dumplings, all right? So let's keep on getting it. All right, the cabbage is done. You can tell when the cabbage is done because it's soft. You see, it's soft. You don't have to overcook your cabbage. It's finished. So now, that's one part of the meal, that's done. This took me about, I would say 15 minutes, maybe 20, depending. I haven't really been watching the time, but I would just estimate that. But you will know when it's done just from the tenderness of that cabbage. All right, so now the cabbage is off the pot, off the burner. I'm gonna put the frying pan, and I like to use olive oil. I'm gonna have to use some more. I have another container, but you wanna fill this whole pan up with olive oil, or you can use vegetable oil. It's up to you, really. So you want the pot to be hot. You don't have to make the oil too hot. So we're gonna go ahead and proceed to make the dumplings. And remember, like I said, you make the dumplings the shape you wanna make the dumplings, okay? Just remember that it's gonna go in your mouth and you're gonna chop it up, so you don't have to waste too much time trying to be too neat. Okay, so I have my stove turned down pretty low. I had it high the first time so the oil can just heat up a little bit faster, but I put it back down to a good temperature, okay? When you're putting the dumplings in, do not let your fingers touch the oil by mistake. Just be mindful of that. Another thing you could add to in the dumplings, you could always put a dash of salt as before you start to knead the flour. However, I enjoy no salt because I like the salt that I added in the cabbage to complement the freshness of the flour. It just works well together. So one of the key things is to understand how this thing is frying. We're letting it fry for about 3 to 5 minutes. I guess it depends on the heat that you have in your stove, how hot your stove is. But you want to, use one of these little tongs thing, whatever you call this stuff here. You can even use a fork, okay, and flip it. If the dumplings is not a nice little gold brown color, then just keep it on the other side until it becomes a nice brown color. You don't want it to be a burnt color. A nice golden brown color like this one is okay, but I'll probably flip that back over and let that brown just a tad bit more. This one as well, okay? And let that brown some more. So as you can see, it's now much more browner. I'll flip these over, and I'm gonna flip this over again. I just personally like to do that. This is how I make them. My eyes just feels really grateful when I see that extra brown, not burnt, fine line. So all I do is just take a plate with a paper towel to catch the grease and take the dumplings out. That looks good, don't it? I know. Now, this is the second batch, but something to be mindful of is the oil is extra hot now, right? So you have to pay attention to the heat. What I did, I turned this down a bit so this cannot burn. You have to really pay attention to the temperature of that fire. All right, this is the dumplings. Look at how delicious those look. Beautiful, nice and golden. It has a nice little sweetness to it, like a cake. It just tastes so good. And then of course we have the cabbage right here. The family's about to tear this up. Not a hard dish, guys. We're looking at probably 30 minutes of prep time, and that's pretty much it. All right, so that is pretty much all it takes to make your sauteed cabbage. It's just delicious. You can do cabbage, you can do spinach. It's up to you to use whatever vegetables you want to do. And of course, we have the dumplings. Like I said in the beginning, if you don't want to do the flour, you don't have to do the flour. You can do sweet potato, you can do avocados. You can do the vegetables by itself, okay? You could have it with a slice of bread if you choose to. There's many different ways to get it done, all right? So let's go. Leave the comments. Let me know how you're doing in the membership. Remember, Cheer for Camp is not just about the working out. It's about the nutrition and the mindset. I'm out of here. Peace.